Okay, got it. Live from the Plutopia News Network, this is the Plutopia Sort of Happy Hour. Prepare for a heated discussion tonight with our friend Michael Tobis, who joins us from Canada, the Great White North. Maybe that's the Great Brown North because of all the forest fires, but we'll talk about all that stuff. I'm Scoop Sweeney, and our warm-up act tonight, it's John Lubkowski.
Yep. What am I supposed to warm up? Oh,
Whatever.
it's a heat wave.
Yeah, there you go.
I see that Susie is joining us too. There she is.
Welcome, Susie.
Just in the nick of time.
There, yes, exactly. So we're having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave. It sounds just as bad as it did when I rehearsed it earlier.
Hey, Stephanie wanted me to tell you that she finally had to break down and get the Elon Musk internet, and she's on a waiting list. And when she
Starlink.
Yes, that. And so once it's good, then she'll be back on the show. But she just can't.
Folks, Screamish Joy is not here with us tonight because she's waiting for her Elon Musk internet service.
Yeah,
waiting for Elon. That's like waiting for Godot, only in a bad way.
Anyway, hi guys.
Yeah, our guest tonight is climate scientist Michael Tobis, who's returning yet another time. You're practically a regular to be our guest and talk about heat.
All right. So the short version is I told you so. Yeah.
I agreed with you.
So, yeah, I guess, I mean, I don't have an agenda here, but you've probably all heard that the hottest days in the instrumental record were just passed this week, and by a fairly wide margin. It's not even a close call. So the global temperature is up to where it's never been in the instrumental record, and everybody's best guess is it's been at least 100,000 years since it was this hot, possibly longer.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So so what is the doomsday clock, and and how far away are we now that we've hit these record temperatures?
I think the doomsday clock is a communication device and not a real thing.
Right. Okay.
So do you think 5 minutes to midnight, or 1 minute to midnight, or 3 microseconds to midnight? It all is a way of saying, it's pretty late to get a handle on this stuff. And it is. It's pretty late to get a handle on this stuff. We pretty much have been saying since about 1990 that if you don't get a handle on this by 2020 or 2025, you're going to start seeing some stuff happening, some bad stuff happening. And I think we've been proven to be right at this point. It's no longer worth arguing about. I understand there's still a lot of people out there who are in denial and saying this is all normal, but it just isn't. And at this point, it's kind of silly to be arguing it.
I agree.
I have some friends who are on the conservative side who believe that yes, this is happening. It's probably cyclical, but also it's not humans' faults. And they think it's hilarious that the whole cow fart thing. They don't really understand how cows, from what I understand, don't fart. And then because they have the two stomach thing going on, but when they eat the food that we give them, they do. And so there is an issue there and it's all man-made. And of course, we've got all the other things that we do.
Wait, you're saying that cow farts are man-made?
Yes.
No, not really. Ruminant animals do emit methane. It's true. But
Okay.
what's happened is that we have more of them because they're raised on feedlots, and there's just an unnatural number of them.
Okay. So my friend is wrong. I'm gonna have to talk to her.
Well, it's a lot of people who meanwhile get a lot of stuff wrong, but in terms of natural cycles, this is a great lead-in to my graph. So,
Great.
John, take it away.
Okay.
Let me show you the graph. I wish everybody in the world would take a look at this graph.
It looks a little scary to me, but explain why.
It's pretty scary. So you do see that the climate is always changing and that there are natural cycles. And you also see something really weird happening at the end. So if you look carefully, you'll see that the blue curve has a spike on it. And then there's a red curve that's sort of a projection of what's going to happen. So I think that, when people say, oh, you're such alarmists, and we say, well, yeah, the red curve is what we think is going to happen. It becomes more and more hard to argue against it as that blue line starts climbing up the red line. See what I mean?
Right.
Wait a minute. Now, the blue line is climbing up the red one because the blue line is actual and the red one is projected?
Blue line is actual and the red one is predicted. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw a version of this earlier today, and it said that 1950 was, I think, the beginning of the fat upward climbing line, and then since then is where it is now.
So what do we attribute that to? Would that be the
Us.
No, but I mean, what industrial revolution? I mean, what?
Yeah, it kind of starts curving up at the Industrial Revolution, and then it just turns into this insane spike on this time scale. And if you look over a century, you can tell yourself, oh, it's just wobbling. But if you look over, thousands of years, you see that it's a crazy spike.
Yes.
We attribute it to, we know what that is. That's greenhouse gases, mostly carbon dioxide, mostly fossil fuels.
No, fossil fuels, that implies that humans were causing this by burning fossil fuels.
Well, if we aren't causing this, it's a weird coincidence, wouldn't you say?
I mean, that's almost as bad as implying that white racists are causing a systemic problem.
So
I'm not going there.
So, but this didn't start happen. Okay, so this didn't start happening until really, I mean, in a fatalistic way, until the car was introduced or the factory was introduced. Would you say that that's right? That it would have just been on a regular, normal kind of trajectory?
Yeah, it was actually, heading slowly downwards. And there are arguments as to whether we were heading for another ice age. But because you can see it sort of peaked around 8,000 years ago and sort of gradually was getting cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 200 years ago, it started inching up. And then in the last 75 years or so, like Scoop said, it's turned into this insane spike. And the insane spike, the thing is, this is what our community has been saying since 1970, is that if we keep doing this, we will get an insane spike.
Yeah, people who weren't around in the 70s don't know about all the smog that we had in the major cities. I was living in the Bay Area at that time, and I lived also in Houston before that, and it was horrible. And they kind of cleared that up just in time for it to get even worse, thanks to all of the other things that are contributing.
That's kind of a interesting thing, because up here we've been getting these forest fires. I'm about as close to the forest fires as any populated area. So we've been getting.
Oh, that's terrible. You got a lot of smoke there?
A lot of smoke stuff happening.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, so tell me, What is the relationship between climate change and wildfires?
Well, it's kind of straightforward. If trees are getting too hot and they're not getting as much moisture as they're adapted to, they start deteriorating, getting sick and drying up, and then a stroke of lightning comes and the whole thing goes up.
Okay.
So like I said, I'm in a populated area, but you go a couple 100 miles further north and it's just wilderness all the way to the North Pole. And so nobody lives there. And when one of these forests catches fire, there's no end to it. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. So the area that's burned is about, I looked this up, comparable to like the size of New Jersey. It's a big chunk of area.
This is a wilderness area, right?
Total wilderness. Northern Canada is essentially unpopulated.
So there's no Smokey the Bear to come and put out all the forest fires.
There's no Smokey the Bear to come out and put out all the forest fires, and so they try to do these things with the airplanes and dropping the water on it, but it's a long flight, and there's not much they can do really.
So there are not a lot of, are there people, are there people being evacuated from?
A few, but
Okay.
as I said, there's very few towns up there. There's a couple of mining towns here and there, and if they get in the way of this fire, the people have to just hightail it out of there. But on the whole, we're really not talking about a populated area. The people who are getting hit the hardest are actually us in the Ottawa Valley is the sort of closest spot, and we have had a number of days with very bad air here. Every time the wind comes out of the north, it's horrible here, and so that's been going on for a few weeks too. So yeah, and the thing is, it's hard to know how unusual that is. But the ones that are due north of me, you don't really see Ottawa. But if you go a little bit east of Toronto, Toronto's on there. Just go a little bit east of there.
Let's see, where's Toronto? Let's see.
Down-
There's
you know where New York is?
Edmonton, Calgary.
No,
No.
There's
down by
Toronto.
Sh-
There you are. There you are. So you're kind of pointing at me. Go a little bit north of there. That's me. And directly north of that, that's where the really huge fires are. That's where
These
the fires
guys.
just
Yeah.
enormous are happening, and there's no stopping them.
If
But
you
look
look
at
on the map,
this, they're all over the place.
Well, yeah, and fires happen in summer, and so this sort of
Why
map.
is Florida
It's a-
on fire?
well, the burning down in Mexico, a lot of that is agricultural burning because that's been a traditional way of clearing out the previous year's leftovers and preparing for planting. And so we've been getting that smoke up in the Austin area lately.
Now, that part down in Florida, to answer Susie's question, is hellfire.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
they did. That's the Hellmouth.
That's Mar-a-Lago, I think.
God, I'm just like,
it's the Hellmouth now.
it is the Buffy the Vampire Slayer Hellmouth right there. Oh my God, that was horrible. I didn't even know that they were on fire for any other reason than they are fabulous.
Well, a similar thing was going on in California, not this year, but in recent years. They had horrifying forest fires, and it was because they were in a historically bad drought. And so the
yeah.
state was just,
All right,
made to
I've
burn.
I've got a link I can share with you. Should I just put it in the chat and
Sure.
you can put it on there? So here's what the smoke
Or I
plume
can
looks
make
like.
you able to share screen too, I
You can do it
think.
that way,
Let's see. Let me see if there's
or you can just fire that up.
okay, I'll just open that and it's taking a minute to open, but I believe I have it there. Smoke forecast.
So this is more or less what's going on, and the really dark spots are that's the
Ooh,
problem. And
that
so
looks terrible.
if the wind goes the wrong way, it's gone to Chicago, it's gone to New York, but it hits us all the time.
Yeah, clearly. That's
Yeah, you're right
awful.
in the middle.
And you can see the intensity here.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
have there been an
and that
exceptional number of people admitted to emergency rooms because of breathing problems because of
yeah,
all?
I imagine so. And the stuff in the Northwest, that's not unusual, but the stuff in the East has just, it's never happened before. So
Yeah.
this is oh, and I guess those orange bits are showing you the burnt areas.
I'm noticing all this up here too. I mean, there's a
That's
lot here and there's a lot up here too.
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
just
So the little
crazy.
orange dots are little local fires, but these big ones are what's causing the problem.
Right.
So I have a question. Can you explain heat dome? What is a
Uh,
heat dome?
can I explain it? It's just a high pressure center that doesn't move, I guess is what I would say. It's we're getting the jet stream to get sort of stuck, and when it does, the places where the jet stream curves that away, there's a high pressure center, and if it gets hot there, it tends to get stuck. So the high pressure feeds the heat, and the heat feeds the high pressure, and so that's what you all have been experiencing these last few weeks. And it's actually related to the fires because the jet stream is so wavy that a lot of that hot air got pulled up to Quebec, where it's just totally unheard of. And so both heat and drought are very unusual there. It tends to be, frigid in winter and cold and misty in summer. And it's been hot and dry, so the trees are totally unfamiliar with this. It's not like Texas trees that can handle it. So it was only a few weeks, but it was more than they could handle. And then some lightning comes by, and then boom. So it's all a question of what you're used to and what your environment is used to. And that's what makes that spike so scary. I mean, temperature changes have happened, but when they happen too fast, both the human infrastructure and the ecological the ecosystems are turn out to be maladapted, and in particular, forests are going to be a problem until we get this under control. Trees can't migrate. Trees stay where they are, and every tree is going to be planted in the wrong place now. So trees have their natural range, and the natural range is going to shift really, really fast, and the trees can't keep up with it.
Well, the climate change that's impacting Canada, is this causing a lot of legislators to rush to the barricades and start fighting for to overcome
Well,
climate change, or is it like this country where they're just like, we'll get to it someday?
our conservative party has been taken over by a very Trumpist element, so it's gotten worse here in the last few years. I won't bore you. I mean, Canadian politics tends to bore non-Canadians, but there was kind of a loophole, and these guys just marched in and took over Conservative Party, which used to be like literally conservative, like just a few years ago, they were literally conservative people. And just like in America, there's really no outlet for serious conservatives anymore. There's just this craziness.
Yeah,
So,
a recent report shows 139 of our elected officials in Congress are climate deniers. So
yeah, so I think most of the members of the so-called Conservative Party here are going to be climate deniers too, especially since many of them, the bulk of them are from Alberta, which is the Texas of the North, if you'll pardon me. So it's basically petroleum and ranching and cold instead of petroleum and ranching and hot. And there's been a lot of cultural overlap, and there's a long-standing resentment of the East and the power centers that feeds into this. So the Yahoos are out in force here, I'm sorry to say.
You know, I'm finding that the former climate deniers are becoming more common. People who were climate deniers before, but now confronted with the evidence, it's hard for them to deny that climate change is happening.
Well, that's
and it's.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And it's also hard for them to deny that there's a relationship to fossil fuels. But what they will say is, regardless of all of that, the economic impact of the kind of shift that we would have to make, I mean, they're sort of like addressing it head on. We can't really do that, they say, because the economic impact would be too terrible. So we really just have to live with it.
And let another generation deal with it. It's so.
If there is another generation, yeah.
The same arguments were made for slavery, right?
Well, I mean, it's the same kind of people making those arguments.
We can't afford to give up our slaves. We know it's bad, but
it's like I always, when I hear about people who it's like anti-vaxxers or flat earthers, I kind of put them all in the same. Like if you're one, you're probably the other.
Well, I always thought the flat Earth thing was a joke, and
no.
And I think there's this aspect of it that really comes back to trolling, where just basically a lot of this didn't exist pre-internet, and people discovered that it was fun to get people mad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a different.
But there are.
I mean, you can't.
A little bit of a different thing.
Nobody could seriously take this flat Earth thing seriously, right?
Well, no, I disagree with you, sir. I've seen a lot of. I've watched a lot of YouTube on flat earthers, and there are some that are not trolling. They are 100%.
Yeah, there were a few of them back, pre-internet that I've encountered, my journalism career, and of course, we pretty much wrote them off as wackos, but they were there, and they were very serious, and they didn't have an internet, but they still made a lot of noise. But a lot of these people that are saying, well, maybe there's climate change, but we can't do anything about it. You can see behind them their puppet masters making them say this stuff. The people from the oil companies and the coal companies and the industries that don't want to change. Those are the people that are really causing this denial.
Of course, but I think the whole flat Earth thing is kind of a side effect.
Yeah.
If you believe that, you'll believe anything.
Exactly.
And you'll even believe Donald Trump. I mean,
yes. And this is this bizarre phenomenon that I find that happens with people who deny climate change, is they really are both feed in the conspiracy theory world.
Mhm.
And there's a good chunk of them who do believe that we've all been lied to, and the earth is flat. We never went to the moon. I mean, they can show you, like, you can see the camera here. Who was taking the picture? How did they get this picture? I mean, but they fully believe the conspiracy.
Well,
It's
there's a
really
fairly
weird.
complex information ecosystem that those people are in. And there's a number of things happening there. And it's sort of like all happening with the same people, but it's complicated. There's a lot of shit going on there.
Well,
Yeah,
let
don't
me,
blame the all of this on the Bigfoot believers. They're good people. They're not
This
going
is
to
a
be
different
good.
thing entirely.
Big, Bigfoot people
let me say
are
something
righteous.
here, partly because, I'm supposed to be the guest here. Let me
You
say
are.
something. It's it's really weird from my perspective, right? From perspective of somebody who's been in the climate world since the 80s and basically spent 20 years from 1990 to about 2010 just banging the drum trying to get people to pay attention and saying, sooner or later this is going to be like a big deal. Oh, it's coming, it's getting closer, are you guys listening? And nobody's paying any attention at all. And now these deniers are coming up with this theory that scientists have been saying this only because the government has been bribing them to. And, I remember 20 years of trying to get the government to pay any attention to this problem at all. And now it's a government conspiracy. And it's how do you convince somebody that, I have personal experience that you're wrong. I know you're wrong. I was there. That's not how it happened. And you can really go to the library and look at stuff from that period of time. It wasn't that long ago.
It's a Dunning-Kruger thing, though. I mean, they don't have to look this. This is who you're arguing with, are people who are 100% sure that they know more than anybody else. Even if you tell them you're an expert, you can show them your credentials, you're just wrong. The Dr. Fauci, he's not right. He's wrong.
Yeah, don't confuse the issue with facts.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but it's watching them come up with this contrived history of what happened that's so very strange for somebody who was actually there and saw what happened, and it wasn't that. And so it's like I'm a bit player in their scenario, but I don't remember it the way they're describing it, right? And I'm still waiting for my fat check from George Soros. I'm telling you, it has
Mine
not
bounced.
showed up.
Well, yeah, I think that they have finally accepted it because they don't have any choice, especially those who have, really nice property on the beach, and they're starting to lose property inch by inch. I mean, I think that they're finally, but the biggest issue for them is they don't want to blame themselves. And I find the same thing in, well, I didn't do it. Well, I didn't, have slaves. My grandparents did, my great grandparents, I don't have anything. Well, but you're still, benefiting from it, and you're still playing into the systemic racism, even if you don't realize it. Well, maybe it was the Industrial Revolution that started it, but we're still doing it. And if we don't start now, I mean, yes, it's going to cost money, right? A lot of money. But if we don't start now, then are we just saying, let's just see what happens? Because that's how I feel what we're doing.
Well, yeah, it kind of is. And, this ties into another thing I've noticed, which is a little different than what you're saying. But you'll find that one of the big sources of denial is real estate.
Oh, you know it.
So if you own property on the beach, you're really motivated to find to not let the property value drop. by acknowledging that the beach is coming for your house. So you'll find that there's coastal towns are really hotbeds of denial, because if they accept that the sea level is coming up, their house becomes essentially worthless on the time scale of a mortgage.
And
So,
what-
you know,
On the
How-
other hand, I appreciate the fact that I will eventually have a waterfront property,
But how
let's-
long do you say that
and
would
I don't
happen?
even have to move to have that.
Let's say I bought a house today in Houston. How
Yeah.
long is it going to be before I have a serious issue?
Well, I don't know. If you have a house in Galveston, it might not be long.
Yeah. Well, you know who is really appreciating the whole climate impact is the insurance companies, the one that do hurricane insurance. They don't write it in the Gulf Coast. You know, most of the big insurers have said, no, we're not going to do any beach houses. You can forget about it because they're history. And yeah, that's pretty telling. They're admitting it's not going to get any better. It's going to disappear.
Well, yeah, they understand, but the real estate business is like the oil business. They're very motivated to not understand. And I think it's just interesting that it's so direct in real estate. It's so like, if you accept this stuff, then your property is worth less than you thought it was. So you better not accept it. And
Willful ignorance. What a great
So,
thing.
so I know, to answer your question, I don't think John will live to see the coast come up to Austin.
Oh, shucks.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not wishing you ill health, but
It's all right. There's a chance
don't
that
think
I
you're
was
gonna
kidding
last-
when I said that. But
I don't think you're going to last the 300 years it might take. But you know, that spike I showed you, that's going to melt a lot of ice eventually.
yeah,
The answer to when is a hard one on that one. We don't know when.
do you see what I'm sharing?
Yes, of course.
Even in the absence of rain or storms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and rain is becoming, you know, really an impact because we've been seeing, you know, storms, you know, big rain and you know, the ones that create big tornado outbreaks across the South. Those have been really growing in strength and in frequency.
Yeah, and this El Nino, what are we expecting?
All
here?
right. So, okay. Well, this is a thing. All right. Permission to speak nerdy.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Good.
Talk nerdy to me.
All right. All right. Of course, the largest oscillation on Earth is the seasons, right? You got winter and summer. You got a 12-month pattern. Probably the second biggest on the time scale of a human life is the El Nino, and it comes and goes on the time scale of 2, 3, 4 years. And what's happening is during the La Nina periods, the ocean is tending to absorb heat from the atmosphere. And during the El Ninos, it's tending to give it back. So it just sort of, it's a consequence of the way the Pacific Ocean is put together. And it's a long story, and I could once do the math, but trust me on this, I did the math once. There's this, the way that works is that there's some years where the ocean preferentially takes heat in, and other years where it preferentially gives it back. And that's been going on forever. It's just a natural function of the way the ocean is shaped. And so the thing is that on top of it, we're pumping more heat into the system by virtue of changing the atmosphere and changing the, um, the greenhouse effect and all that. So there's been extra heat, and we've had a long La Nina period. We've had an extended 3-year La Nina period. So the ocean is supercharged.
Uh-oh.
So finally, this thing tips over into the other side of it, and it seems to be like it has a lot of heat to get rid of. So there's this big blip of heat that's come back out of the ocean, and it started just really a couple months ago, and it's going to keep going probably through the winter and into next spring. Normally it peaks around December, and that's why it's called El Nino, because it was first discovered by Peruvian fishermen, and they associate it with Christmas. And so El Nino is the child, and they're referring to the birth of Jesus in the name of the phenomena. And its opposite became La Nina because some smartass just came up with that. But El Nino means Christmas, is a reference to Christmas. So it peaks around Christmas time. So it's only just getting started.
So what do we expect to see this next? And how long do you think it'll stick around if La Nina stuck around for 3 years?
Typically the El Ninos go away faster. The La Nina can stick around. The El Nino usually doesn't. But this one could be weird because, like I said, it's supercharged. So I think what we're going to see is what we're already seeing. In fact, if you look at the temperature graph, I've probably all seen it, of what's been going on the last week or so. We're way outside the envelope of what's happened on the instrumental record. Now, it's not a huge amount of temperature. It's like, I don't know, a 20th of a degree Celsius, but it's a 20th of a degree way outside the envelope, right?
Right.
So it's these points really stick out, and it's the global temperature is, well, I could wax nerdy again. It's hard to move it that much, and so this is a striking event, and it's been associated with you guys' heat wave and our forest fire, and there's heat waves in South Asia, and there's very unusual warm temperatures in the North Atlantic right now. So what that's going to do to Europe in the next few months is hard to say, but probably something. And yeah. So
Geez, that looks really bad.
it's a lot of red and not much blue.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but you're missing the part off of England, which is also super red.
Wait a minute. Let's see. Where is that? Oh,
It's above the top right. It's not on this. It's not on this map.
okay.
But yeah.
Oh man.
So as I said, to John in my email, there's a 2-word summary here, and the one word is fan, and the other word is shit. Because, this is quite likely going to be a year that people remember as the transition from, oh, those alarmists, to holy crap, this is happening. And so it certainly is around here. Like I said, we've never had smoke emergencies up here before, and now it's just like every week we're going to get one.
Yeah, and here in Texas, you have people dropping dead in the heat, heat stroke or whatever.
I imagine. Yeah. I heard that prisons weren't air conditioned, and I'm just horrified by this. But I guess
I went out one day just to get some sun, so I'm like laying there in the sun, and at some point I could feel my heart rate accelerating, and
You were
eventually,
cooking.
yeah, I was I was starting to feel weird, and I got inside, and it took a while to settle down, and I realized I was probably on the verge of a heat stroke just from laying there.
There have been a lot of those. Texas is home to some of the most virulent climate deniers. And Environment Texas released a report this year that stated that Texas is the largest emitter of global warming pollution in the U.S., and it's home to some of the most dramatic consequences of that pollution. So we're basically killing ourselves.
In every way possible.
Yeah, well, it's almost a little unfair. I want to say something in defense of Texas, which is not a complete defense, but a lot of those rankings are they include the production of fossil fuels, and production of fossil fuels emits a lot of CO2. So if you look at the country that's worst on that ranking, it's going to be one of those little oil-producing republics in the Persian Gulf, and Canada comes out really bad, and Texas comes out really bad. But it's because you're producing the oil. So in fact, in terms of lifestyle, California and Texas are going to be about the same, even though in terms of culture, they're pretty different. In terms of how much people air condition and how much they drive around and how much stuff they get on Amazon, they're going to be the same. So yeah, Texas is worse than California, but only because Texas produces a lot of oil. I think people live the way they live, and just because I think anyone who lives in sort of one of the newer parts of the United States is going to be using a lot of energy.
Yeah, one of my favorite things were early days of Texas when I was working in the news business in Houston in the early 70s. The Houston Ship Channel would regularly catch fire, and we would go down and cover all the hippies roasting weenies over the burning waters on big long poles. And that was made the news. But of course, all the city officials and all the state officials, no, that's just an accident. It's not going to happen. And it would happen, a couple of weeks later. You just on and on and on.
There was
The Ship Channel is just a vile body of water that's just been totally polluted for many years.
I don't know why people go swimming down there. I had my grandparents were on the coast, and it's just like you can't. And even back then, there's just tar everywhere. It's just gross. I haven't been to Padre Island in a really long time, but I lived in Corpus for a brief period of time, and even Corpus was just, it was just not a beach. When the water's brown, it's not really the beach you're looking for, is it? The pictures of people at the beach in the Gulf it's backwash. That's what the Gulf is. It's just like you drink something and your spit gets all in it, and that's what that is.
Well, there was a time when you would go down to the beach and there would be tar everywhere.
Yes.
From the oil rigs offshore. They finally figured out a way to prevent that from happening, so you don't have the tar situation anymore. The beaches are cleaner down there. It's obviously better than it was, but it's still not like being out on the glassy waters of the Caribbean.
I just think, well, even San Francisco or New York, the brown water, Chicago, you go to the Great Lakes and they've got blue water. What's up with this?
Well, actually, speaking of water, we kind of take it for granted. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I use a lot of water.
I have too, actually. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I can use a lot of water because there seems to be plenty of it and it's not costing me that much money. But the more people that move into this area, the less the water tables are going to start dropping. We're going to have a water problem one of these days.
About where I am, they're on water on stage 2 water crisis level, to where you could only do watering of your plants certain days of the week. So it's getting worse because
I
we
remember.
usually have a lot of water, but not anymore.
Yeah, Texas uses a lot of groundwater, and it's a limited resource, especially out west. And
Yeah.
so what's going to happen? I don't know. Apparently, Arizona's already running out. They've been using Colorado River water, and it hasn't. It's moved off of its historical amounts. And
I'm not really a big fan of that state anyway, though.
Arizona.
I'm
Hey.
just kidding.
Hey, a lot of people aren't fans of Texas,
Oh no, you know what? Born and raised, not a fan right now. I mean, I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship with my home state. I really do.
Well, it's not the state,
I mean-
though. It's the state government.
I did leave, I did leave. So
Yeah.
No, I
hear you.
actually, so I'm part of an online community where occasionally people will start hopping on Texas, and making rude comments, specifically about, the idiots in our state government, right? But I try to point out to them, I say, our state government is not our state. And there's a lot of great things about the state of Texas, and there's a lot of great people in the state of Texas. And it is unfortunate that we have a bunch of very strange people who are, and actually, just kind of like grifters and loonies, that are creating a perception of the state that is not completely accurate.
Yeah, but you did vote them in.
I did not.
Over
I
and
didn't.
over and over.
It's true. Statewide offices, they voted those people in, and I don't understand it. But there's a lot of gerrymandering involved in creating
That's the issue.
the kind of
yeah.
majority that we have in our
But we voted the
legislatures.
guys in who did the gerrymandering. It's sad. I mean, I hear what you're saying. We were blue for a minute, and that was fun.
Actually,
but
for a long time.
yeah, it's just been so long ago. It feels brief, I hear what you're saying, John, but the same could be said for Florida. And, we say Florida's, for me, I mean, we rag on Florida all the time, and it doesn't have anything to do with, we know there are good people there, but,
Well, and I'm
Texas-
careful about the way I talk about Florida, because I understand that there's a lot of people in Florida who are not happy with the way that government
right.
is. I mean,
But there's a reason for
yeah, they could vote them
generalizations.
out. I mean, it would be nice if they could vote them out. I keep wondering why we haven't voted out some of the. I mean, look at the problem that we have. We have legislatures that are not doing anything
Yeah, I mean,
but
I have to-
performing to.
I have to
Go ahead.
say that when I lived in Texas, I mean, I really like Texas people, and it just baffles me that and sometimes I meet people that I like, and their politics is still nuts, and I don't understand it. I don't understand it, and I ask people to try to explain it to me, and like, oh, your dad's like that. How did he get that way? And I never get a coherent story. It's just like, oh, he's that way. That's the way it is. And
How do you say he likes to be racist and sexist and doesn't want to change? I mean, how do you that's not something that you are able to say. I don't want to change. I like to hate people. There you go. I mean,
Yeah, well, those people are everywhere, but a lot
Yeah.
of this has been pushed on by major media. We know the name of that main media that's been pushing that, and there are a lot of listeners to Fox News here in Texas. It's one of the most popular channels, on cable. That's the source of a lot of this misinformation.
And the people who've been, loyal to Rush Limbaugh and haven't found an outlet yet, now they got Tucker Carlson, and he's got podcasts and stuff, so they're able to run there. And it's the same group of people, only they don't have to pretend that, that they have any kind of morality whatsoever or know how to comport themselves in public. They don't
Which
have to do that anymore.
brings me back to the trolling thing. It's like they enjoy upsetting people.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh,
Then
you have these liberal views. Well, you were, you're beneath contempt, and I don't want to listen because you're, you're one of them.
yeah.
Well, I will say that I'm looking at Fox News right now at a headline on there that says global temperatures soar to highest levels in decades, signaling alarming climate extremes. It says elevated temperatures pose greatest risk to young children and the elderly. Heat advisories in effect.
But don't blame the oil companies.
Well, they don't care about either of those groups, by the way, because the kid's no longer inside the woman, so who cares? And elderly people, who cares?
Fox cares about elderly women, elderly people, because elderly people pay their bills.
Well, I guess that's right.
But anyway, yeah, I'm interested to see whether they say anything about, human-caused climate change.
I'm checking right now.
Yeah, they've got to have some reason. Well,
I
there's
haven't
got
seen anything in here
They're
referencing
just gonna say
climate change.
it's really hot, and the
Yeah,
end.
they're only saying that because everyone else has a similar headline. They just don't go deeper than that. It's just, here's the headline, but we're not going to tell you where it came from.
Well, let
Yeah,
me
they-
read you the first comment on this article about climate, and it talks about, it goes on and on about the heat without referencing anthropogenic climate change. It says, and somebody says, weather going to do what weather going to do. The climate has been in a constant state of change since the Big Bang Theory and will continue to change ad infinitum on its own terms. No amount of money will ever change this fact.
Since the Big Bang Theory, that makes a lot of sense.
No.
That's a little like talking about World War II, but you never mention the Nazis.
I guess he's talking about since the Big Bang Theory
Yeah, so-
premiered on television, right?
This is, I think he is. But I think this is exactly why I want people to look at that graph. Yeah, the climate's always changed, but it's never got a kick in the butt like it's getting now. Yeah, it's always changed, of course, but
what it does.
it's one thing for it to change, and it's another thing for it to be like torqued.
Oh, but wait a minute. Let me read this. Here's a paragraph
well.
from this article. It says scientists generally use much longer measurements, months, years, decades, to track the Earth's warming. But the new figures are an indication that climate change is reaching uncharted territory, even if the data aren't quite the type used by gold standard climate measurement entities.
Whatever
Gotta gin up
Whatever
that.
that means, yeah.
You gotta get
What
scared.
gold standard is that?
That's
But you
about
know what they're
fear.
saying, they're admitting here that climate change is a problem.
Well, but
But-
they still haven't said it's anybody's fault.
Mhm.
They're
It's true. They didn't.
Well, and in fact, they're using a whole different study. They're not using the study that should. So this will be basis for them to continue on towards, well, it's not humans' fault, this is more cyclical stuff, and it's just bad this time.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people want to believe, and that's why I want to show them that chart, because this isn't one of those. And yeah, I mean, I just can't believe we're still arguing this. This is what I'm trying to say. It's like, I'm done arguing. This is happening, and it's just, how many things have to fall into place before you say, before you stop saying, it's just the theory, right? It's
I mean, when people don't understand something and they're not really interested, or I'm going to say interested enough in finding out what it's about, they're just, when it comes up, they're just going to talk out there whatever anybody else has been saying. The problem is they don't educate themselves. Nobody really educates themselves on this stuff. They go to forums where they just exchange ideas and opinions. They don't have any facts to back it up, so they just say that all the facts are false.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm pretty tired of having this argument because it seems to me that I feel like we've been proved right at this point. I feel like that there's, it's not going out on a limb anymore. It's happening, and it's no longer oh yeah, there's signs of it happening. There's consequences already, and they're going to get worse and worse and worse.
It's like the captain of the Titanic noticing the iceberg as the ship sinks beneath the ocean.
Yeah. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have gone that fast. Yep.
Yep.
Maybe I should have looked where I was going.
Yeah.
Well, I just despair at the fact that we're probably not going to see younger children being educated about this, because the way the educational system is being manipulated in this country is really just depressing. If the facts are going to depress or make a child uncomfortable, then they don't want that talent.
You know what? I think at this point schools are not very relevant to what children think.
Probably true.
They have the internet. They have each other. They're talking it through. I mean,
yeah,
it's and the teachers at this point are petrified to say anything. I mean, I don't know how you're supposed to get through a week without saying anything, but they're just afraid to say anything.
Ooh, it sure is hot. Don't say that.
Sure is hot out here.
It was hot yesterday.
Yeah, my Susie's teacher said it was hot, and I want her fired. Yeah. So, I'm not worried about the kids in terms of getting information. They're so surrounded by bullshit at this point.
Yeah.
They're growing up. They're growing up in a sea of bullshit, really.
I think also this telling them, they can't do this, they can't do that, you're not allowed to do this. It's so, to use the new term, Streisand effect. You've got
exactly. The kids are gonna go gravitate exactly to that.
They're gonna go find out what CRT is so fast. They're so excited about that, and then they're gonna find out it's history.
Oh boy.
But I do think that's one of the things that happens is you call attention to something like that, and then you don't mean
to wrap up. I'm saying I don't want to discuss the crazy theories that deniers have any more than I want to discuss the crazy theories that flat Earth people have, or any chemtrails or any off the wall thing like that. I think it's no longer necessary to discuss it, because I think anyone at this point can see that it's gotten serious. But now you have to do something about it, and I don't think we're ready. I don't see how we're going to get a handle on it.
So you don't think the flying saucer aliens are going to come and save us?
I've thought about that. It's like, where is the Federation of Planets? Captain Kirk should come down here, mess around with one of our local women, and meanwhile fix everything.
Is it too late?
Is it too late for Captain Kirk? I don't know.
No, is it too late to fix the
There's no
climate
such thing
change?
As too late. There's no such thing as too late. It's too late at this point to avoid consequences, because you can look around you and see consequences.
Yeah.
Consequences have started, and they're going to get worse, and it's too late to avoid that.
And that's what the doomsday clock makes me think. There's
And, people do that. Oh, there's 12 years to save the world stuff. And it just sends the wrong message. Basically, we've already screwed up. And the question is, how bad are we going to screw up? And unfortunately, I don't see any immediate signs of it turning around.
We're like bad guests. Or parasites, whichever
So
one you want
this
to
is
go.
this is my shtick. It's stand-up tragedy. And I have trouble getting gigs. I'm telling you, I appreciate this because
Well, we're always happy to have you here.
Oh, that was
no,
awesome.
you're not. I just bring misery.
But
Well,
we
you
can
can
laugh
bring it
at
here and we'll
misery.
talk about it.
All right. Well, I appreciate the chance to talk.
It was great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
You
My
have
pleasure.
to come back. I'm sure
Yeah.
things aren't going to get any better anytime soon.
Come
All
back
right.
soon. Okay. Well, thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Good
Off
luck.
we go. Bye bye.